Our next guest is Mr. Ernie Hedges, and he is an author of a book which we'll get into, but he is history on the move, huh? Born in 1931.
What? No.
Weren't you born in 1931?
I graduated in high school in 1930.
Oh, you graduated? Oh, my God. We're really moving you up. And in 1931...
1911 I was born.
1911. That's right. That's right. Let's do a little math here. We'll get it right. Yeah. All right. But you graduated from high school in 1931 when Herbert Hoover became president of the United States.
He was president.
He was president.
When
Which
I
you
was
remember?
in high school.
Yeah,
When I was in high school, yes.
And then you moved all over the country. But your basic skill was baking. How did you start that? From your parents?
Well, it's kind of a long story.
Yeah.
I got into it because I had a sister that she lived in Chicago.
Yeah.
And her husband became ill, and he came back to Cambridge, out of his hometown. And then he passed away.
Yeah.
And then I was staying with my grandparents in Nebraska, and she asked me if I would come and stay with her. So I quit my job there. I worked in a floral shop there.
Floral shop.
And then I went back to Cambridge, and she couldn't find a job, and I couldn't find a job. It was during the Depression time, you know. But the bakery there was for sale, so we decided to buy the bakery. We didn't know. She worked a little bit in the bakery of Minneapolis.
So she had some experience.
Just a little bit, not much.
Yeah.
And I knew how to make baking powder biscuits, something like that. But then we bought the bakery, and the baker stayed there. And I learned how to bake from him. And then after a few years, he wanted to leave the bakery, so we hired another German baker. He came in, and I learned a lot from him. Then my younger sister came and stayed with us, and she married the baker, so he was in the family.
How romantic.
So,
Romance behind the oven, huh?
Yeah. So that's how I got into the bakery business, and I've been in the bakery business ever since.
Then you Then you caught up to World War II.
Yeah, they caught up with me, I guess.
It depends how you look at it. And you baked. You did baking with the government, but and you tell me now that you were with the evacuation hospital.
Evacuation.
Because the kitchen operation followed that.
We was the first one that received the injured.
Yeah, right off the bat.
And then they would be shipped back to a
hospital, whatever,
another
stateside,
hospital.
whatever. Yeah. And what'd you do for the hospital?
What did I do?
Did you bake for the doctors, or what did you do?
Oh, well, when I did bake, I baked for the doctors and the nurses and the patients.
Well, that's a good customer base.
It was just like a little city almost. But most of the time I was in North Africa. I didn't do too much. Just once in a while I would make pies or cakes,
just something they could have
donuts or something like that.
Yeah.
And but when I came to Florence, we stayed there for a whole year. Then I baked for the whole outfit. I baked for the nurses and the doctors, and we had over. Just the personnel was over 300. And we used to have.
Was the war going on then in Florence?
Oh, yeah.
Were you anybody drop a bomb on you ever?
Well.
Or a loaf of bread, anything?
When we went to Anzio, we replaced a hospital that had been bombed out.
Really?
But we had a lot of bombs that came in our area, but they were duds, and they never did any damage.
So you met your wife?
I met my wife in Florence, Italy.
Was she leaning a little bit? Never mind.
No, that's a leaning too. Well, no, I met her. I went halfway around the world just to meet my wife.
Where'd you meet her?
Well, when we got into Florence, we were in Rome.
Yeah.
And we went to Florence. When we got there, I was tired and dirty.
Yeah.
And all my clothes were dirty, and
You're a mess.
And the kids would come around begging for candy and cigarettes, something like that.
Yeah.
And not cigarettes, but chocolate and stuff
food,
like that.
even plain food.
Yeah. And then one boy came and said that his mother would do the washing for me. So I gave him all the clothes I had, except the one I had on.
Yeah.
And I did take his name and address.
Yeah.
But my friend told me I would never see my clothes again, But after 3 days, we decided to go down and check it out. And we met them on the way up. And my clothes were
immaculate.
The father, the mother, and her two brothers and my wife, Cina.
Oh, she was part of the family.
She was part of the family. Yeah.
Oh.
She came up, and I met her on the road, and we met over some dirty clothes.
So so you dated her in Florence while you were there, and then after the war you went back to get her, or how did that work out?
No, after we were in Florence, and we were going to go to France. We were supposed to go there, but instead we went to Milan.
Yeah, okay.
And we went up there, and then well, we decided to get married, but I had to marry her before I left, otherwise she couldn't come. She could come to the United States as my wife.
Yes, right.
But otherwise she'd have to go through immigration. It might take a long time.
Yeah.
So it was imperative I get married before I leave. But we went to Milan, and then the war was over then.
Yeah.
By that time. And then I went to the colonel and asked to get married, and it was a long process.
They discouraged you.
They discouraged it very much.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
Tough. But my wife used to come to the hospital quite a bit, and my best sergeant met her and knew her, and through him he
pushed the paperwork through.
he helped the colonel to sign the papers. And I had a friend of mine.
Here, Colonel, sign.
But it took a long time. And
Yeah.
I marvel at the courage I had, because I was kind of a quiet
Well, you're
person.
in love and the whole bit,
Yeah,
weren't you?
well, it was love at first sight.
Yeah, you were seeing stars from ever since, right? So
and,
then she came back to the United States, and where did you settle in the United States?
We came back. Well, I was discharged, and then she came back. They were
Later.
supposed to come right away.
Yeah, but forget that business,
But
yeah.
it took 7 months
Yeah.
before she
Yeah.
came back.
Yeah.
And then came back. We lived in Cambridge, and
you went over to
my sister had run
Wisconsin.
the bakery all the time I was gone.
And you got some
She had good
profits.
help.
Did you make good profits while you were gone?
Good what?
Did the bakery make good profits while you
Yeah,
were
they
gone?
moved up and had a new building. We moved up, just a small town, just one street.
What was the name
But-
of the bakery?
It was Hedges. Well, it was. We said, what was it? We said, what? Cambridge Bakery.
Cambridge Bakery.
Cambridge Bakery.
Is it still there today?
Still there today.
Is it
Still
running?
there today. And then she was doing so good that I decided there was another bakery for sale in Madison. So I bought a bakery in Madison. So I moved to Madison then, and had a bakery in Madison.
And that one's called?
It was called the Hedges Bakery there too.
Cambridge Bakery, okay.
Well, it was a Cambridge Bakery.
Did you ever hear
in,
of the Huffman family? Did you ever hear of Huffman?
Huffman?
Huffman family in Madison, Wisconsin? The Huffman
No, but I've
brothers?
heard Oscar Mayer.
Oscar Mayer was certainly there. No, the Huffmans are my mother's side. But all right, so you opened the bakery there, and did your wife come and pitch and make good Italian pastries?
Well, all she did was decorate. She was very artistic, and most of our business was
Cakes.
cakes, birthday cakes, wedding cakes, and all she did was just decorate. After the kids were all in school, she came down and helped in the bakery.
She came and
Otherwise,
did it?
when they was little, she never worked in the bakery.
How many children do you have?
I have 4 children.
4? Boys, girls? What do you got?
I have two.
2 boys?
I had 2 girls first.
Two girls.
Jane was my second girl. And then I had 2 boys.
And 2 boys. And what are the boys? Are they bakers now?
No, one is in insurance business,
Okay.
and one is does construction work, but he belongs in a band. He sings around in different groups. He's a singer.
And the girls?
And one girl they're married, has a family, and Jane is was in the police department. Now she's working as a civilian in the police department.
Oh, okay. Better pay that way, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, but anyways, this is the book, and it's called The Flowers of Cina?
Cina.
Cina. It's more like a J than Gina.
Cina. Mhm.
And she passed away, God, some time ago, right?
Well, it was 9 years ago. This July will be 10 years.
10 years she
10 years
passed away.
yeah.
She looks like she is quite a woman. Yeah. So that was a story, huh?
She was 75 when she died, and we had been married 53 years.
All from making cakes.
Yeah, I really never worked for anybody all my life.
Good for you.
I worked in the post office for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I was in the Army for 3 years. And outside of that, I had my own bakery, my own boss.
And you remember the first Model T Ford?
Oh, yes. And my dad bought a Model T Ford. He traded a team of mules in for a Model T Ford.
How many mules did he have to trade? Do you remember?
2.
Two
Well,
mules
T-
for
T.
one Model T Ford. We're moving on.
Well,
And remember the
imagine-
crank on that? That thing,
Oh,
that crank,
yeah.
that was a vicious thing.
Well, even the Model A, you had a crank.
And now you remember the first electric light. Where was the first
Well, in
electric light?
Minneapolis, we had gas lights.
Yeah.
When we moved there, we had gas lights, and then finally they did put in electric lights, and then they never cleaned the snow. I mean, bobsleds are all they deliver the coal on bobsleds,
Yeah.
and
And that was it.
that was it.
That was it. Do you
Then
know,
they had-
in Wisconsin, when I was young, you could get free light bulbs. Because in order for you to use electricity, you need light bulbs. And they would give the light bulbs free. You bring your burnt out bulb and they would give you a
Yeah.
replacement to encourage you to use electricity. Now we're busy trying to unuse electricity.
We're lost without it.
And you made your own crystal radio.
Yeah, I made little crystal radio sets, and my mother, she just loved that. And she listened to Lindbergh when he crossed the Atlantic. She just glued herself to that day and night. She just loved that.
Were there a lot of radio stations on then?
No, there was only two in Minneapolis, WCCO and KSTP.
CCO, right.
I still remember the two stations.
Right.
there.
You never heard of electric typewriter or a VCR or a guy wearing earrings?
No, never.
What do you
Never heard
think? What do you think of that whole pass of time? Do you think the country's better off with what we did and all the things?
Well, in some ways they are, in some ways they're not.
Yeah,
Sometimes they're worse and sometimes they're better.
yeah.
It all depends on it.
It's amazing.
We call them the good old days, but I'd hate to go back to the
Yeah,
good old
right. To do all those things. Remember, we had a shovel stuff. Now you're a volunteer for the police department here.
I volunteer, yeah. Well, Jane volunteered me
Oh,
to
really?
start with, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, but I've been there now for about seven years. I
7
think.
years. And what do you do for the police department?
Just fingerprinting. We fingerprint for people that need employment,
For employment purposes.
not for criminals.
Criminals,
Just-
yeah, they're in a
just-
separate,
just
separate thing.
employ.
So, and how many hours you put in per week for doing that?
Oh, I don't put in very many a week. I put in just
Afternoon?
3 hours just a week, about something like
Do
that.
they give you a special badge or anything?
Yeah, I have a badge. I have a. I
Do
don't-
you get your own private parking place in front of your house without being
Well, I
harassed?
used to, but now they cut me out. I have to.
They cut you out. You should get an honorary award.
But I got a parking, disabled parking thing, so I can park in a disabled now.
Oh, okay. That's that blue thing you got.
Yeah.
You have to look for blue now, right? Okay, okay. Now you remember making your own ice cream
Oh, yeah,
from
I was,
snow, sugar,
fresh.
and vanilla. You had to
Yeah,
find
that-
some real fresh, clean snow.
Yeah, it was when it first came down. It was pretty clean. It probably wasn't clean, but we
Yeah.
thought it was.
You didn't
But
care, you admit it.
Add a little vanilla to it. It was very good. We didn't have to freeze it; already frozen.
And the Sears catalog was used for toilet paper. You
In
remember
the
that?
outhouse.
Yeah, that's right. Because
we
Sears
never
made
had
them
running
nice
water.
and thick for you when
Yeah.
you ran out of one, they would send you another one. Remember the homes that you could order out of the Sears catalog? They had a whole prefabbed home. And you
Yeah.
just call it right in, they would send it out to you by truck or train, whatever, and build. Wonderful life, huh?
Yeah, that was great.
Okay. And it's going to have many more years, I hope. Ernie Hedges is the name. Thank you. Very enjoyable. We'll be back.